Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another Insanity Check with Dr. Anita. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite Wilson, and I am here with the crew, Eloy Garcia, Sade Perry, and Adrian Pastor. Crew, how we doing this morning?
Good, good.
Good.
Everybody's good. For some of us, it's raining. For some of us, it's not. Where is it raining? It's raining out here in Anaheim.
Yeah, it's raining over in Highlands.
Okay.
In Corona.
All right.
Not raining in Palm Springs yet.
Well, that's because it's Palm Springs. You guys have to have sunshine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of being Palm Springs. So before I forget, let me remind you to please go to my YouTube channel, Dr. Anita PhD, DoctorAnita PhD, and please subscribe. That way you can see all of our past episodes. We've had some fabulous shows, and I just love nSanity Check because it gives me the opportunity to think out loud and ask the question, is this crazy or is it just me? So this month's theme is surviving the scene, SEEN, and surveying the scene, SCENE. Surviving the scene, what we can see, and surveying the scene, what we can't see. And as we go through our shows this month, when we end with Dr. Julie Taylor, it's going to make more sense to you. Right now, we are still in election season. As of today's broadcast, the actual election day was Tuesday. Today is Saturday. And we're still in election season. And my understanding is that there's the potential that we will be counting votes past Thanksgiving. So everyone stay calm and roll with it. Today, though, we're going to be talking about a book titled The Survivors Club, and I have been looking forward to getting into this book. Now, let me have the opportunity to check my notes and go back and forth as I talk with you so I can set up today's discussion. But this is a book that I heard about back in May, and I've been wanting to do this show for a while, but I like to be relevant with what's going on. So I wanted to make sure that our previous shows were always on trend. And by the way, shout out to Steph Nagami. Hey, Steph, glad you're with us this morning. The Survivors Club is a book that I heard about in May, and the premise of the book is that the author, Mr. Sherwood, believes that in times of crisis, and I think that we are in times of crisis, the most important survival tool is faith in humanity, which perhaps maybe 5-10 years ago I would have agreed with that wholeheartedly. But I want to spend some time looking at the premise of this book. So he starts with the theory of 10-80-10, and that describes how humans respond in disasters. 10% of us respond with decisive action. 80% of us freeze and wait for an authority figure to tell us what to do. And 10% of us do negative, self-destructive, counterproductive things. So remember, the title of the book is The Survivors Club, and the author's premise is that we need to have faith in humanity. But he lays out the 10-80-10 that says 10% of us will freeze. 10% of us can make decisive action. 80% of us will freeze, and 10% of us will do counterproductive things. So he said that one of the common denominators for people who get through tough times is adaptability. And I would absolutely agree with that. And for me, adaptability means how I perceive change. If it's something that I feel like is being done to me, I'm not very adaptable. I'm just going to be honest. But if it's change that I feel like I'm initiating, then I can be more adaptable. Eventually I will come along, but for me, my natural state of thinking is if this is being done to me, I'm not going. Am I the only one? Anybody else on the crew like that? Yeah. So you see changes. If I'm initiating it, I'm cool. But if it's being done to me, not so much. Okay. So I'm rolling with people to get me. All right. So then the other common denominator among survivors is faith, and either in a higher power, family, friends, or, to his point of the book, faith in fellow man. And I also agree with that. I have mentioned that I am a Christian, and I also believe in the faith of my family, the faith of my friends, such as this crew right here. We have had several discussions, when we're not on air, and we've got each other's backs. And I know that if I needed either one of them, they'd be there for me, and vice versa. They know that if they need something, I'm going to be there for them. So I absolutely get that. So now we get into the fact that, generally speaking, I don't have a problem with the premise of this book. And I will say none of us have read it. The intention is not for this to be a book club. It's to talk about the premise of the book. So full disclosure, none of us have read it. But during the entire interview in which the author was speaking to the interviewee, there was a phrase scrolling across the bottom of the screen that said, "We need to put our faith in humanity." And this is where I ask the question, is this crazy or is it just me? Because again, the author himself has said 10% of the people make decisive action. 80% of the people are waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. And another 10% of people are just going to do something counterproductive and destructive. So with that, Sade, is it just me or is it crazy that this man is telling us we need to put our faith in humanity, especially when you consider the events of the last 10 months since January of this year? What do you think?
It's absurd.
Yep.
I think the last thing that I would want to do is put my trust in people who have already expressed that they can't handle that responsibility. Their actions have expressed that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially right now when you think about everything that we're going through with the elections, and we are putting our faith in humanity right now. We are trusting that there are enough people that think like us and that want the same things.
Mm-hmm.
And it is terrifying. But to counteract that, no, it's not crazy. You know, we started life with each other. That was all we had before we kind of progressed and built on. It was Mother Nature and it was humans. So at the end of the day, how can you not?
Mm-hmm. Now, when we have these shows, depending on the topic, I make sure that I reiterate that these discussions are not politically motivated and they're not religiously motivated. I make that clear with this show. I make that clear when I'm working with my clients, especially when we're talking about diversity, inclusion, and belonging, because some people like to bring in politics or religion as a shield to avoid talking about the real issues. So I want to clarify that when Sade says people that think like us, we're not talking about political or religious motivations. I think we're talking about the fact that we just want folks to do the right thing for everybody. Is that right, Sade?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I just want to clarify that. So, Elo, you're a man of action. What are you thinking about the premise that we should put our faith in humanity?
I think we should have a plan and know what part of humanity and what part of humans we are going to put our faith in, which 10% or the 80%. You know, when I worked for the city, we were deemed a disaster relief center. Most public service places are, which meant that we had to have all the tools we needed and also the resources and the connections. So I think about that when we've been dealing with this pandemic. If who is your circle? Who can you rely on? If you are sick, who can you quarantine with? If one of your loved ones becomes sick, how can you help them? So I try and structure it in a way of, okay, I know what percentages of people may respond in what ways. Now, how does that look in my circle? How does that look in the people that I'm close to? And what can I do to position myself and them in each other's lives so that we can be supportive of each other and not be caught off guard?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so what you've just done is you've made the distinction between faith in general humanity and faith in your established circle of either friends or family. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Adrian, now you are the one on the team who always has a different perspective. So what are you thinking about this?
Well, when I initially thought about it, I was like ruminating with myself, thinking about how I feel sort of 50-50. I definitely agree with Eloy in the sense that I put my faith in humanity in the sense that I surround myself with a circle of people that I feel like I can be safe with and that can, hold me accountable and, various other things. And I kind of alluded to that when we first talked about the Survivors Club, is how like in having faith in humanity, it's important to have that inner circle that you feel safe with. That's your safe group. Those are the people that you really identify and rely with. But the reason why I feel kind of like 50-50 either way is because it's also not accounting for this outside group of people that I don't have control over, that I don't have, connections with or what have you. And so it's difficult to necessarily say that I can put my faith in them. And I said that the first time around too, that it doesn't necessarily feel practical for me personally. And when we talk about the election, um, you know, over 100 million people, according to the Washington Post, put in early votes, which to me, it gives me faith in our future. It gives me faith that people are proactive and they want their voices to be heard and they're passionate about their future. But then it's difficult when, there are so many people that are behaving in ways leading up to the election that are just not appropriate for an election time or any time at all. So it's definitely a cross, and I feel torn both ways.
So I'm going to pose this next question to Sharday. And while I do that, Eloy, I hear a little, not Eloy, Adrian, I hear some feedback when you're talking that makes it a little difficult to hear exactly what you're saying. You always have something very rich to say. So I don't know what might need to happen in the background, but I'm going to send this next question to Sharday. So in light of what we are seeing and in light of the way people are behaving, when you say people that think like us, what does that look like when we talk about people that are willing to be responsible for the health and welfare of everybody and not just their self-identified group? Was
Yeah,
that question
okay.
clear?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it does. And I think I just meant like-minded people.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that doesn't mean that you have to agree with what I'm saying, but
Right.
we both agree there's a certain way to have a conversation. There's a certain way to even engage in a conflict or a confrontational conversation. And so I think it's going to look like everyone's showing up. And regardless of what you believe, regardless of what you know or who you're connected to, you're here and you're willing to do your part. And when I think about that in the global scheme, I feel like putting our faith in humanity is trusting that they're going to show up. And we can work with that as long as everyone is here and willing, then, that's how we get through crisis. That's how we get through disasters, by coming together.
So when you say show up, give me a little bit more about that, because people are showing up, but I feel like not everyone is showing up for the good of humanity, since that's the premise of the book, is to put your trust in humanity. Mm-hmm. And I was going to just kind of share an idea that humanity, for me, blue team, I just happen to be wearing blue, or I'm on the red team. It's about, what does my team stand for? And sometimes that means standing for what's right for everybody. Sometimes that means standing for recognizing that I need to put my individual rights aside for the greater good. And so when we talk about putting faith in humanity, that's not what I'm seeing, which is why I'm having a pinch with this book. So Sharday, with that in mind, what do you think? And then we'll go to Eloy, and then we'll go to Adrian.
Well, I think that it's going to look different for everyone. I feel like for some people, it'll be more of a sacrifice to show up. For other people, they were already standing there. I think it's being knowledgeable and knowing where you stand and the difference that you can make. I think it is not only showing up, but being prepared, coming with the information and coming with resources and coming with an action plan. I'm not just here, but this is why I'm here and this is what I'm going to do. So I think it'll look a little more cohesive, a bit more organized, as opposed to just being there. I think there's a lot of information that is being put out right now. And that's that 80% that are kind of waiting to be told what to do or waiting to be told which way to sway. And it's like, you got to be that 10% that is already prepared, even if you're coming into the 80%, like, hey, I'm still looking for, like, what do I do? But I'm coming in and I know A, B, and C, and that's going to contribute to what we should all do.
I love how you just put that. Even if you're part of the 80%, you're coming into it with a 10% mentality that says, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and do something. I love how you just connected that. So Eloy, it's coming to mind that we've got this phrase in the diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging space that says you don't have to be one to stand with. And when we're talking about putting our faith in humanity, back to what Shar just said about you may find yourself in the 80%, but you're coming in with a 10% mentality of the 10% that's ready to do something, to make some decisive action. How do you connect that with the whole, you don't have to be one to stand with? Like, for example, if your guy is the one that's currently in the White House, you don't necessarily have to be one to stand with and want to make sure that everyone is being considered. Am I making sense? Okay.
Yes, definitely. I really like how you put that, of coming in with that 10% mentality. That's awesome. And I think it's my perspective is a combination of your and Shardae's commentary of, we need to realize that this one person, this one president, isn't representative of what our nation has been as a whole for the hundreds of years, right? And we need to realize that it's part of the process to have someone come in and have someone, go out. So being gracious in that way of, well, we had, for lack of better terms, we had our turn. We had someone that represents me there, and he did what he did, and he did his thing, and I felt seen, and I felt embraced. And now it's time to have someone else do the same, again, for everyone. So I think the intention of coming into it with the intention of the greater good and the bigger picture for the nation is important. However, it's kind of difficult because we all have our own bigger picture, I think. But as far as diversity and inclusion and being part of the group, it's really learning about what the other side, or the group that you're trying to come into, what are their ideas about fairness, what are their pressure points, right? So we can stay away from them, so we can kind of refine those edges. And what is it that community needs? So if we're going to come into that community, I don't think we should be centering ourselves, especially if we're not part of it. We should be appealing to them in ways that have them feel seen and have them be heard, but in a sincere way, not just lip service. So I think a combination of what Shar's saying and what you're saying are really key to that intention being honest and genuine.
Mm-hmm. I love how you started your statements by saying our current occupant of the White House is come in not necessarily representing the way the country has usually shown up, so to speak, as a body. And so with that, Adrienne, I'm going to come to you, because what Ella just said goes to the point of this month's theme about surviving what we see and surveying what we can't see. Mm-hmm. So that being the case, what do you feel about the fact that we're seeing humanity in the United States in a frame that we had not seen the 4 years prior?
The way I feel about that particularly, and I think this is something that we're going to lead into a little bit later, but the fact being that there very much so were these hidden ideologies and hidden sort of agendas or frames of thinking that were not acted upon or not, validated in a way until, this current state of the nation, with our current president and everything like that. It made these people and, these thoughts and these ideologies, it brought them into motion and it brought them into action. So I think that's really how that played out.
Yeah, I would agree. Wow. I'm even struggling with where to go next in this particular discussion, because I don't want to get personal yet. That's going to be in our next show. Are there any final thoughts that anybody wants to share about this book, and whether or not we agree that, this might necessarily be, something to embrace? I find this discussion very intriguing. I'm not likely to read the book simply because I have so many things that I need to read. I know for me personally, My faith is always in God, family, and friends, and not so much in humanity. But I want to clarify, it's not that I don't believe that humanity can do better, but I think that we just kind of need to go back to some thinking that goes beyond ourselves. Um, I have a course that I teach. It's called BYOB, the most effective workplace habit. And it's not about bringing your own bottle. It's about getting beyond your own box in the organizational structure. And I think that in society, if we tend to try to get beyond our own box a little bit more, then I could probably lean into having faith in humanity. That being said, though, we also have to remember that as dire as the state of our nation is, we could not have gotten to where we are without some form of faith in humanity, especially when I think about civil rights and all the way back to the Underground Railroad. That could not have happened without white people being involved. So I guess I'm kind of straddling the fence, because on the one hand, I always put my faith in God first. But on the other hand, I recognize that over the years, when you look at civilizations, it does take a level of faith in humanity to say, although some of us don't get it right now, we're not always going to be here. And eventually we will get to where we want to be. So I guess that's where I would wrap my perspective about this particular book, The Survivors Club. Let's go around and see where everyone else is landing as far as this book. Who wants to go first?
I can chime in first. I definitely find myself where you're at, Dr. Anita. And it's sort of like I said earlier about that feeling of being 50-50. That's very much how I feel about it, because I'm really the type of person that can see all like sorts of perspectives from every kind of side of a situation. And so that's why I really see that, you know, in certain situations, having faith in humanity really is something that is useful. And like you said, throughout history, it's shown that it is, you know, we have to have faith in each other and we have to lean on each other. You know, we can't do things by ourselves. You know, humanity is a team and it's a group effort, and it's, you know, something that we all do together. That being said, it's just difficult when, and alluding kind of to what Eloy said earlier and what I was kind of mentioning was how, you know, the certain administration that we're in right now really brings about a divisiveness and like a division between us, which makes that group effort, that, you know, team mentality where we have faith in each other, that much more difficult to maintain.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with you 100%. And because you always have different perspectives on whatever topic we have, and you usually end on a positive note, that's why you're on this team. So thank you for sharing that, Adrian.
No problem.
Shar or Eloy?
I'll just apologize. It is pouring down raining right now, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear that noise, but it's very intense.
Don't hear anything but your strong, convicting voice. So go right ahead. That's all we hear.
Good. I think I started in the beginning with this idea of there is too much division right now. It seems there's too much chaos. No one is listening. So I felt disheartened. I felt like I don't know if I believe in humanity right now. And then I kind of stopped and I was listening as everyone was talking. And I thought a lot about what you were saying in the sense of where we've come from to where we are now. And it kind of just shook me. And I'm like, you know what? No matter how bad it gets, it feels like it's been worse. And so I feel like we are constantly growing, even when we're in slow motion, even when it seems like we are stagnant. And I think it's not fair to count out those who are doing good, those who can think outside of themselves, just because it seems like the majority can't. It seems like the majority is stuck in their own box. You know, I really believe that one person can make a difference. And I think that's where it starts. And so at the end of the day, my faith is in my circle and the people that I know and that I love, but my faith is in the people that I don't know and that I don't love. So I guess that's kind of where I am with this right now.
Well said. And I like how you open up with the fact that it does seem like we seem to be talking past each other and that we're not listening. We're hearing, but we're not listening. And it takes the heart to listen. And something that you said I have faith in everybody, my friends and family that I love and people that I don't love. And I think that's a huge differentiator as well in my work as a diversity, inclusion, and belonging consultant and coach. I make it clear with my clients that I don't start with race relations. I look at how can we build relationships. I don't do the shame and blame. How can we move to know and grow? And I think most importantly is when it comes to discussing diversity, inclusion, belonging, I don't start off with reaching agreement. I start off with raising awareness. And once our individual awareness is raised, we'll get to that collective agreement about some things. And to your point, that means that we have to stop talking past each other. We have to listen with our hearts and not just hear with our ears. Because too often when we hear with our ears, if it doesn't connect with what's going on up here, we quit listening. But if we listen with our heart, something changes, and that makes us more willing to show up and do things differently. So, Eloy, I'm glad I'm ending with you, my man of action. And you and I have had several conversations offline, just kind of talking, getting to know each other. And as a first gen to go to college, you have a different frame anyway. So what's your frame in all of this? I'm really interested to know.
I'm really grateful to have been able to have this conversation with you all because you have shaped my perspective on this as well. I think it's a little different than what it was when I first started. And what I really am taking away from this was when you said, have that 10% mentality, and when Shar is saying that we need to, love everyone to some extent, even the people you don't know, or trust in, and Adrian is saying, that trust and collaboration have really shown up. And as a first gen student, like you're saying, all of those things are true. I've had to come into spaces where I wasn't aware of and didn't know how it was going to go and talk to someone that was a stranger, and they helped see me through. And I wouldn't be where I am without a stranger showing mercy, right? And having compassion. So I really am going to move forward from this conversation with that 10% mentality when I'm coming to spaces that feel like the 80% of the people just waiting to be helped, waiting to be given a word, and do so in a way that
You missed that last part, Eloy. What were you saying?
and do so in a way that's going to uplift, help them to feel seen, to be heard, even if they aren't coming from the place that I'm in.
Well, I think this was a great show. I think that's our cue to end it for today, whatever's going on in the background. I will say this, though. I had mentioned the fact that none of us have read the book. We were just kind of discussing it based on the title. And I had also said that because I've got so many books that I need to read, I probably won't get this. But based on everyone's closing comments, I think I am going to add this to my list, because if I'm going to be bringing the message of diversity, inclusion, and belonging, those are the three areas that I focus on, which absolutely involves humanity and how we interact with each other. It seems to me there might be some nuggets of wisdom from this book that I can bring into my conversations. So, Adrian, I want to thank you for helping me see that. You always give me a completely different perspective when I came in with. And again, that is why I usually come to you last. Shar, as always, you just put everything together in a very thoughtful approach. I love how you said, even those that find themselves in the 80%, we need to show up with that 10% decisive mentality that says, I may not know yet what to do, but I plan to come in here and do something. And then Eloy, of course, you always are just so eloquent in how you just kind of wrap everything up. So I want to thank my crew for another insightful discussion. I enjoyed it as always. I hope that you did too. And these discussions are not meant to sway you either way, just to bring you into the conversation to help you think through your own decisions about some of the things that I think are crazy. And I talk with my group to test and make sure that it's not just me. So I really hope you enjoyed today's show. Please make sure that you catch the next show, because we're going to be talking about this, but we're going to be talking about it from a much more personal perspective. Again, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Anita PhD, DoctoRanita PhD. And until the next time, remember to stay blessed and keep it real. I'm Dr. Anita.